You are listening to Season 7 of the award-winning Christian Outdoors podcast with your host, Pete Rogers. All right, everyone, welcome back to Christian Outdoors. I'm your host, Pete Rogers, and this is episode number 373, I think. I should have checked that before I did it, but we're going to roll with it and hope it's right. Hunter Bonner is joining me today. Hunter is 31 years old, and he was born in Jacksonville, Alabama, before settling in the landscape of East Tennessee. His life is built around his faith, family, and a deep love for the outdoors. Hunter says he grew up in a Christian home that laid the foundation for his character. From a young age, he was introduced to hunting and fishing pursuits that brought excitement and taught him lessons in patience, respect for nature, and stewardship. Hunter was saved in the early life, and his relationship with God has guided him ever since. Spending time in God's creation has always helped him stay grounded and focused. Today, faith remains a central point to Hunter's life. He serves as a deacon and a song leader in his local church, giving back to the community and supporting others in their spiritual journeys. Leading worship and being a part of the supportive congregation is both a responsibility and a blessing that he deeply values. Hunter is also a proud member of the Mossy Oak Pro Staff team. Woo woo! Let's go, Mossy Oak. This role allows him to share his passion for the outdoors, connect with like-minded individuals, and contribute to a broader hunting and fishing community. Representing Mossy Oak is more than a title. It's a chance to inspire others to appreciate and respect the beauty of nature. Faith, family, and the outdoors are not simply interests for Hunter. They are the pillars that define him. He is grateful for the opportunity to live out these values every day and to share them with those around him. The journey from Alabama to Tennessee has been filled with blessings, and he looks forward to continuing this path that has guided him through his faith, surrounded by family, and always connected to the great outdoors. Welcome to the show, Hunter Bonner.
Hey, I appreciate it, Pete. Good to be here. I look forward to it. You know, we was talking before we started and never done a podcast, but I said when they first got relevant, when they all came out, I thought, man, that'd be cool to do a podcast one day. And then not just any podcast. Here it is, Christian Outdoors, and that's what I'm all about is God, family, and the outdoors. So good to be here, and I appreciate the invite.
Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate that very much. Thank you. So I found Hunter, if you're a long-term listener to Christian Outdoors, through Travis Sumner, who is the Mossy Oak Pro Staff, I guess you call him regional director or something like that.
Yeah.
But so Travis is mine and Hunter's both go-to guy on the Mossy Oak Pro Staff team. And so I asked Travis, like, who can you recommend that's on the team that would be a good guest? Wow. He immediately sent me Hunter's name. And I said, never heard of him, but I'm going to find out. So Hunter, again, thank you for joining me. We were talking before we turned on the recording to the show. Hunter, when we were talking about the fact that you love deer and turkeys. Yes. Pretty common for Southerners. That's about all we have.
Hey, that's it.
You know, a few bears and a few pigs here and there, yep. But it's mostly deer and turkeys. And you were telling me how when you were younger, you were a bow hunter only. Go through that again, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I started out just as a kid. You know, my dad's the one really got me into hunting at an early age, and always went with him. And I remember when I first started going with him, I could barely walk. He'd have me out there, but you know, if he didn't ask me to go with him, I'd be mad. And so he always asked, and I always went. It didn't matter if it was freezing cold. And I remember this one time we went, and we wasn't very far into the walk in, and I tripped in the creek, fell in the creek, was drenched, you know, wet, cold. And he said, "You want to go home?" I said, "No, I don't want to go home." I said, "Well, let's go." And so we went on. And so, you know, at that time he was, you know, he'd carry a 30-30 Marlin at that time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay. And so as I got older, he got into bow hunting. He had a high country bow, and then he took me, and I started out, I think it was a Parker little youth bow, and he got into bow hunting. And so anyways, that kind of sparked, that's where my interest in bow hunting came from. But I took it to a whole different level. When I got into high school, my dad loved bow hunting, but I loved bow hunting way more. I took it, like I said, I wanted, if it was a squirrel, rabbit, turkey, deer, you know, whatever was in season, and I could go after it with a bow and arrow, that's what I wanted to do. And wow. I was like that all through high school. And anyways, we moved up to East Tennessee when I was in 5th grade. And so got into high school, and if you're in the Pigeon Forge, Sevierville, East Tennessee area, you know this place is just loaded. Well, at least it used to be. It used to be loaded with wild turkey. I mean, it wasn't nothing to see a turkey anywhere. Now it's just kind of here and there. And I mean, they're still around, but it's not like it used to be. But anyways, I remember in high school, I had a buddy, and he was all about the turkey hunting. And I said, well, he invited me one time, and I said, well, I want to bring my bow. He said, bring your bow? I said, yeah. He said, you don't want to do that. I said, yeah, I do. I said, if I'm going to go tree hunting, I want my first turkey to be with a bow. And I remember taking my bow and him get me on a turkey, and I missed. And he said, I told you didn't want to do that. And I said, yeah, I was. But I was so hard-headed at that time in my life, it had to be with a bow and arrow.
Yeah.
And but as I've aged, I'm 31 years old now. And as I've aged, I don't know if that's just something you go through, or if it's just something I went through. I know, other kids my age back then, whatever season was, rifle, whatever, they would go. But I was, I wanted to be with that bow and arrow. But now it's bow season. It just opened past Saturday here in Tennessee. But, muzzleloader opens, I believe, second weekend in November. And on open day of muzzleloader, I'm putting down the bow and going to muzzleloader. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. On open day of rifle, I'm putting down the muzzleloader, I'm going to rifle. That's how I am now. So, but it's a lot more enjoyable, I will say, being able to, whether it be gun, bow, crossbow, muzzleloader, is a lot more enjoyable because, I mean, you got all these seasons and you're not, you're just not stuck with one weapon. And like I said, maybe that's just something I went through and not many people do, or maybe they do. I don't know. But that bow and arrow, it was hard to let go of there in my high school years and early 20s. But now I'm all about, whatever season it is, I'm with that.
But you do still bow hunt.
Oh yeah. Still love bow hunt. Yeah. Like I said, I won't put down the bow and arrow till muzzleloader opens, and I've got till November for that. But, yeah, I'm all about the bow hunting. Went this past Saturday, and opening morning, weather was kind of, weatherman says it was going to be thunderstorms in the evening, clear in the morning. Well, it ended up being vice versa. But I did get, about an hour and a half in opening day and seen 2 small bucks, and I think it was 8 or 9 does. And
that's good hunt.
All within 30 yards, all those deer coming by. And that's something about bow hunting. I think that's one reason it was so hard for me to put it down there for so long, is just that up close and that adrenaline rush. You don't, until you do bow hunt and you do kill a deer with a bow or turkey or whatever, nobody will understand that feeling with a bow and arrow. It's not like a rifle muzzleloader, but like I said, it's just as age, you hunt with that bow a few weeks, a month or two, and when gun season opens, it's time to go with the guns.
And as we said, pre-recording is I've interviewed a lot of people who are still my age and still strictly hunt with the bows, and that's all they do. And they kind of look down on those of us who use whatever weapon. And you mentioned the thing about bow hunting, but being close to the deer and how exciting that is. You can hunt the same stands with your rifle or your muzzleloader. You can still be close. You don't have to shoot long range just because you have a gun in your hand, But a lot of people do that. They say, well, this is bow only stand because it's tight. I've taken my lever actions in there, my 45-70s, those tight places, and hunt those just as well. Or my Taurus revolvers, go in there and hunt those bow stands, so to speak. But I'm like you, man. If it's legal and it's in season, I enjoy all of it. I do. Yep. I enjoy the bow hunting. I enjoy the muzzleloader hunting. I enjoy the rifle. It doesn't matter, whatever is in season, and we support you using whatever legal weapon that you want to use.
Absolutely.
So I've never hunted the East Tennessee mountains, which are in the heart of the Appalachians. By the way, that's got to be pretty difficult terrain to find deer in.
Well, I'll tell you, I came from Jacksonville, Alabama, and there's a lot of agriculture, fields, there's a few mountains, but not mountains like there are here. And so going from Jacksonville, Alabama to here is kind of like you said, I bow hunt a stand, but that same stand I'm sitting in when rifle season opens, because it don't really matter where you're at around here. You're not going to be shooting very far distance where I'm at. It's mountainy, a lot of woods, a lot of thickets, a lot of cedars. it's tough, but like you said, it's, it don't really matter what weapon you're hunting with around here. It's going to be close quarters no
Right.
matter what. And,
Right.
but now deer, I don't know if it's because, like I said, Tennessee used to be a three or four buck limit, and now it's two, and it has been for a few years now. And I don't know if that has something to do with it or not, but you know, you just ask anyone around here, you see deer everywhere now, and it didn't used to be that way. It used to be, you seen turkeys everywhere. You hardly ever seen any deer. Well, now it's
Yeah.
kind of you see turkeys, but you also see a lot of deer around here, and not just any deer. Like I said, I've killed some really nice. This deer right here behind me, that's my biggest one that I've killed today, and it was with a bow and arrow. But that's a big deer for this area, and
Right.
but now it's nothing to see one of these deer walking around where it used to
Yeah.
be. I mean,
Yeah.
you just didn't, and but it is harder than, like I said, being in Georgia, Alabama, some of these other southern states, just because of the mountains and everything. But I will say it is rewarding, you know, climbing these hills and mountains, and you know, doing the extra effort just to hope to get a shot at one of these deer around
Right.
here.
Right. Right. Are you hunting public land?
I do not. I've never hunted public land. I've been fortunate enough to always have private private land access, whether it be family or friends.
That's good.
So
That's
I've
good.
never done the public land deal.
Mhm.
So I don't know a whole lot at all about public land,
Okay.
but
I was just curious because when you were talking about going and climbing the hills, and I was wondering if you were packing your backpack with your climbing stand with you, or your saddle, or whatever it is that you hunt out of, all the way in there, or if your stands were already set ahead of time. I was just curious.
yeah,
That's why I
mostly
say.
I'm in a ladder stand or a hang on stand 99%
Yeah.
of the time. So,
Yeah.
but
I love the ladder stands. As you get older, you're gonna find you love the ladder stands, and then you even love the ground blinds even more.
yeah, about 2 years ago, over it's mainly my grandparents that I hunt, and me and my dad and my granddaddy went in and cleared, the flattest spot we had, and kind of cut out some of the overgrowth and everything, planted food plot,
Okay.
got it established pretty good. And anyways, my buddy I hunt with in Georgia, he only just about ground blind hunts, and I thought,
Mm,
man, I really wish I could do this where I'm at in Tennessee, but it's like I said, it's so mountainy and hilly, it's hard to.
yeah.
But anyways, we cleared a spot out, and last year I put a ground blind, was able to put a ground blind in it, and I got a 5-year-old daughter, and took her, and man, just it was fun, and it was enjoyable to be able to sit in the ground blind, and it's different than being a tree stand, so it was good to switch it up. But
It is, and I've said this before at other shows, but I'll say it again: is the pop up ground blind, or hub style ground blind, is the perfect setup for introducing children, because they
yeah,
can wiggle, they can move, they can do
yeah,
and not spook the deer, and dad doesn't get upset because you just scared the deer off when they're sitting there, playing. That's what they're doing, because I
yep,
mean, they got a lot of energy. They're fidgeting, they're coloring, or they're whatever they're doing, and yet, or they can take a nap, and you say, hey, wake up, wake up, wake up. Here comes a deer. And you can show them, and they get all excited. They're seeing it. So that is, to me, that's one of the best things about ground blinds. It
yep,
is a way for older people and younger people to be involved in the outdoors without the risk of climbing up into stands.
yep,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she really enjoyed it, and she'll be back in it this year. I took my wife last year, and she enjoyed it. My dad, uh, he don't care much for hang on stands. He says they ain't comfortable, but he'll sit all day in that ground blind. So
Yeah.
it worked
Yeah.
out for
I tell
everybody. So
I love them, especially because here in South Carolina, our season's been open since September 1. It's just hot,
hmm
hot. So I have a battery fan, the DeWalt battery fan I take to the stand with me, blow on me, keep some air moving.
oh
So,
yeah,
so you're not just, and I tell you, when they came out with those, they had no idea they were perfect for deer hunting. They thought they were for the construction site. No, they are perfect for early season deer hunting.
yeah,
Those battery operated fans, and they're, but I take that with me. And then when it's cold, I have the Mr. Heater. And a lot of people listen and say, oh, yeah, you're just a wimp because you can't. Okay, I'll own that. I want to be
oh yeah,
comfortable. I
oh
want
yeah,
to be comfortable,
yep,
and I have a comfortable chair, and I'll take um, a thermos of coffee if it's cold, or, whatever, because I'm not enjoying it. if I'm miserable sitting there.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. That's kind of what my dad says, he wants to be comfortable,
Yeah.
and if he ain't, it's hard for him to sit.
It
And
is.
like I said, I'm only 31, but I totally get that because, I ain't afraid to say, if I ain't comfortable, I'm not
Yeah.
going to be able to sit there
That's right.
on a 20-degree morning for,
Right.
6 hours. So, hey,
Yeah.
whatever works, I'm willing to do to be comfortable.
And long before there was the heater bodysuit, I was taking my sleeping bag to the stand and crawling inside of it. Take my boots off, throw some hot hands down in the bottom, just climb in that sleeping bag, pull it up to here and zip it up because my upper body stays pretty warm, but my legs and feet, hard to keep the legs and feet warm when you get older, especially. But I've been doing that forever.
Feet's the worst thing for me. Once my feet gets cold, it's hard for me to sit. But now, like I said, keep hand warmers in my pockets that keeps my hand warm. But it's just my feet, and like I said, I don't know if there's a boot out there that I haven't tried that will keep your feet warm or what. But so far, I ain't found it. So my feet is usually the first thing to get cold.
Yeah, let me give you a couple tips, and don't share this on the air.
All right.
2 things that I learned 20 years ago. One of them I read, the other one I just figured out. You're going to laugh at me when I say this, but if it's going to be cold, put antiperspirant on your feet, like your underarm deodorant, but the antiperspirant, rub that on your feet, the tops of them and the bottoms, prevents them from sweating.
Okay.
And put a good pair of wool socks, merino wool or classic wool, doesn't matter. And the third thing is, do not lace your boots up tight at all. Just tight enough they don't fall off when you're walking, because when you tighten them up, it cuts off the blood circulation. So keep your boots loose, good wool socks, and put antiperspirant on your feet, and your feet won't sweat and they don't get nearly as cold.
Well, there you go. I didn't know that, so I had to try.
There's a tip right there. That tip's copywritten by Pete Rogers and Chris Outdoors. Anybody use it? No, I'm just kidding. I read that somewhere about the antiperspirant. That sounds kind of hokey, but I'm gonna try it. And daggone, if it doesn't work,
hey, that's all that matters.
Yeah, it does. Especially if you're doing a lot of walking, when you tend to sweat more.
Yep.
And the other thing is I don't wear my coat or a stocking hat when I'm walking in, because I'm just a sweater anyway. I wait till I get to my stand, start to get chilly, and then I put on my coat and my stocking hat and my gloves.
Yeah.
Otherwise I'll start sweating, and then I'm done.
Right.
You just can't do it. Thank goodness it doesn't get as cold here as it does there where you are. So the turkeys in the mountains, earlier today, this will come out, I think, before yours, maybe after. I don't know, but I interviewed Dave Owens, and we were talking about with the Pinhoti project, we were talking about hunting mountain turkeys, and he said that's what he loves, and it kicks my tail every time. And so I'm curious, since you lived there in the mountains and you mentioned turkeys, how are mountain turkeys for you?
Well, they're aggravating 75% of the time, and 25% of the time they'll cooperate, and it's enjoyable. But it does get difficult, and it's the main thing is just, all the hills and stuff. You can be on one second, and you think you got to set up where where they're going to come from or they're going to come to, and somehow or another they'll circle without you knowing it around the hill on the backside, and you have no idea and they'll bust you real quick. So it is difficult. This past spring, my brother, before he left, he graduated this year in high school, and 2 weeks later he's going to he left for Paris Island. And so during turkey season, it was the last day. He hadn't got to go a lot. He had a PT training and all that stuff. And so anyways, I said, well, you can't miss last day. Let's go last day and see if we can get you on one. And got there, and they were gobbling. It was one of those mornings where you knew it was going to be right. And they're gobbling. And I got them set up. I said, and he agreed, they're going to come, they're headed this way. Let's just set up right here. Somehow or another, to the right of us, he got behind us and busted us. And, to this day, we don't know what we could have done different, because we did everything we knew
Yeah.
that, you know, we should have. But it's just things like that. You know, a turkey will make you really think after they outsmart you. You know, what could you have done different? And a lot of times, you know, there's just in the moment in the game, in the moment of the time, you know, there's that don't come to mind, you know,
Yeah.
well, we should have done this or we could have done that. You know, when they're gobbling and they're coming, you know, you're just everything's fast paced and you don't have time to really think out all the situations that could happen with a turkey. But the turkey will show you, and you definitely learn, you know, every time you go to the woods around here about the, you know, things to
About the
keep in the
mountain
back of your
birds. Yeah.
things to keep in the back of your head when you're going, because they it's difficult a lot of times.
That's like I told Dave is that, for me, I don't know if it's my hearing or what, or lack of experience. It's hard for me to tell when they're gobbling in those hills,
Mhm.
which ridge they're on and how
Yeah,
close they are or how far they are.
yeah,
Because it just echoes so loud in
yep,
those trees. He sounds like he's 40 yards away and he may be 200 yards away. And he may
yeah,
be two ridges over. And he's not going to
yep.
come down two ridges to get to you. You got to figure out how to get to him. And that's what kicks my tail every time. It's just, but it's fun chasing them, man. I love it. I absolutely
Yeah.
love it. Yeah.
I tell you
Yeah.
something I've learned about turkeys in, you know, in my younger years when I was first getting started turkey hunting. Like I said, I grew up deer hunting and that was about it. And until I moved to Tennessee, didn't really care nothing about turkeys, and got in high school and met, like I said, my buddy that I was talking about earlier. He was big into turkey hunting, and he was one that really got me into turkey hunting. And so up until then, I didn't really know, you know, all the ins and outs to even how to get started turkey hunting.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I now know, you know, a lot of times, like I'm a morning type deer hunter. I want to be out there. You know, I don't care if everything is stacked against me that you probably shouldn't hunt that morning. I'm the type of deer hunter. I just want to be there to see the sunrise and be out there. And the
Me
same
too.
way with turkeys. I want to be out there at sunrise. But what I found older I get, you know, that 10 to 12 o'clock range, a lot of times is really when turkey hunting, you know, gets exciting. And for
Yeah.
many years, I was the deer hunting in me, you know, from sun up till about 9 o'clock, and we ain't got one. Let's go home. But
Yeah.
I've learned over the years that that midday or mid morning slash midday, that can be, like I said, that's
But it
probably a
is.
lot.
It is. And even with the deer, I'll hunt to about 11 in the morning
Hmm.
on the deer. Unless it's rut, then I try to sit as long as I can. I've never been one who could sit all day. I just get too antsy.
Yeah.
Unless I'm seeing lots of deer. You know, if I'm
Right.
seeing lots of deer, I can continue to sit there. But back to the turkeys is that it's like if you're not right on them when they fly down, then they're going to get with their hens and they're going to go do their thing. The hens are going to go off to lay their eggs and nest. And then the toms or the gobblers are still looking for those last couple of hens.
Yep.
That's like you said, 9:30 to 1 o'clock, 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock. You find that gobbler that's around roaming, looking, trying to find that one last hen. He's still got love on his mind, and she's thinking about going to her nest. He's going to try to find her, and
Oh
a lot
yeah.
of times that's when you can strike them, and that's where patience is so much critical when it comes to turkey hunting. Well, they're not responding now. I'm just going to wait, take a nap, wait till
Nope.
9:30, 10 o'clock, and start over.
Oh yeah.
Try to just keep trying to strike one. And once you get one struck, and usually if you can get one to holler at you about 10:30, he's coming.
Yep.
He's
Yep,
coming.
absolutely. Yeah, those are the hunts you live for in the turkey woods. Is those
Mm-hmm.
when they responsive, you know, they, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
they fly down, get with the hens, but you come back and it's a whole different ball game at that
It
point.
is. It is. It is. And I like to kill stupid or hunt stupid turkeys. That's what
Yeah.
I want. I'm the guy. I'm the bottom feeder. I like to hunt the dumb ones because they're easier.
Oh
And
yeah.
don't get me wrong. I love to kill one with big hooks on it, a little 4-year-old bird or something. But I'm glad with turkeys we can't do like we do deer. He's
Hmm.
a 3-year-old, gonna give him a year or two. I've never been one that did that. I live here in
No.
South Carolina. You see that deer right there? It's a 100-inch deer. That's about as big as they get where I hunt. So, in reading your bio, one of the things that you talk about up front, and I like that, is you grew up in a Christian home. So, what we do
Hmm.
here at Christian Outdoors is we ask people to share their faith story. And what I mean by that is not just how you got saved or when you got saved, but your whole story. So,
Right.
growing up in a Christian home, start there and walk us through how that went and how it impacts how you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll first just say, all the glory to God because He's blessed me with so much. And one thing is Christian parents and a Christian family, grandparents, the whole 9 yards. And, you pay attention to the world today and see kids and stuff, it's not like it used to be when I was a kid. It was kind of weird if you didn't know Jesus or didn't know about Jesus and everything, where today's age, you're kind of, the weird one if you do know Jesus or know about Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just thankful, like I said, that I was able to, the Lord blessed me with a Christian home, and my granddaddy grew up under him. He pastored my whole life growing up, sat under him in church and everything. And, to this day, it's kind of came full circle. I'm 31 years old, and 4 or 5 years ago, the Lord, deacon at church asked me if I wanted to be the song leader. And, at that time I couldn't talk in front of 3 people publicly. And, I would, and during in school, high school, middle school, I'd take an F if I could get out of having to speak in front of the class.
Yeah.
But like I said, about 5 years ago, I was asked to be a song leader at my church. And, I prayed about it, and the Lord said, do it. And, when the Lord talks to you and He tells you to do it, you better do it. And so I did. And then, it's been a blessing doing that. And then three years down the road from that, I was asked to be a deacon. And so, the growing up in a Christian home under my granddad, it just came full circle in the church world. But, I never got in high school. I never went down the road of drugs, alcohol, none of that. But my testimony is, as I got older and got in, graduated high school, got into college, did 1 year in college, and dropped out. And, you're young, you're wanting to figure out your life, what you want to do. And, you're wanting to do it on your time and figure out how to do it on your time. And if it's not on your time, there's an issue and you just get impatient. But my testimony is waiting on the Lord and relying on Him with everything, because His time is far greater than our time, and far more blessings will come if you, rely on Him and wait for Him. So, but like I said, got saved at a young age. I ain't saying I've lived a perfect life. I've went left, right, here and there, but the Lord never let me get too far away before He got me back on track and say, hey, what you're doing ain't right, or, the path you're wanting to go down ain't right for you. So you better listen up. And so I'm just thankful and blessed that, I had that relationship with the Lord ever since I was a kid, and He's never left my side. He's not far away. He's just, as me and you are talking, I can be talking to Him at the same time. He's always right there with us. So, like I said, it's just been a blessing. And, now I'm, got a 5-year-old daughter, got my wife, got my own family, and, she's singing in church. And a lot, like, just as it came full circle with me and watching my granddaddy and my parents and everyone in church growing up, now I have a daughter who, is getting to witness what I witnessed. And it's something that's rare in this day and age, is just, family core values, biblical values, and standing on the Word of God and being unashamed about it, because it's, like I said, it's something that it just seems like you just don't see a lot of these days. But I also know that, news medias and things, they don't want you to know about, they don't want you to be, see the good stuff in the world and see the good, talk about Jesus and stuff. And, it's still out there. The Lord is still, He's still King. And there's people and Christians like me and you who, are unashamed and is out there sharing the gospel. And the Lord's work is still being done, whether it gets reported on or not. And, I'm just thankful and blessed to be a part of it.
Yeah. Great story. Great story. And you just said something that resonated with, I'm going to divert a little bit, if you don't mind going with me on this. You're right. A lot of what you had growing up is different now. And everybody who's listening to the show knows my story. And I didn't grow up in a family that went to church. I came to that later, but, when you see families that's generational that come to church and they are unashamed about their faith and they walk it and live it and walk the walk, not just talk the talk. knowing that we're all sinners and we all fall short, get that.
Yep.
But what it does is it sets up a legacy for generations, right? And one of the things that we see today in the world, not just in America, in the world, is the persecution of Christians now.
Yep.
I mean, right now in is it Uganda or Nigeria? I saw on the news this morning that over 100,000 Christians have been killed by the Islamic government there, and they're burning churches and just going into the churches and slaughtering everybody and burning the churches, and nobody's talking about it.
Yep.
Nobody's talking about it. I mean, today there was a mass Islamic protest in Minneapolis where there were hundreds, I say 100,000. I don't know how many, but it was a lot
Right.
of Muslims marching in Minneapolis in America, wanting to have Sharia law there. And it's refreshing as an older person to see a younger person who is willing to stand up for their faith and to say, wait a minute. And as we're recording this, the Charlie Kirk incident happened just 2 weeks ago. Yep. And it's fresh in everybody's mind. And there's all kinds of rumors flying around, but what we know is that this one guy did it. Mm-hmm. And it has really caused a stir in the Christian community.
Yep.
In a positive way.
Yep.
It has, my church that I attend, it was the most full it's been since I've been going there this past Sunday. And we're very rural. Okay. Way out in the country, very small church.
Yep.
There was 5 or 6 new families there who had never been before, who live in the area, and it's bringing people to it. So I'm saying that to say this is that it may not be easy to stand on your faith. Sometimes life is hard. Oftentimes life is hard. Yep. But you said something, Hunter, that just resonates with me personally, and I want to encourage any listener to this, is that God's timing is perfect. You said that. And while God may not be on our time, he's always on time.
Yep.
And I had a pastor when I was going through something years ago made this statement, and it stuck with me. So I want to share it. He said, Pete, sometimes it's hard to see where God is when you're in the middle of it, but you'll be able to look back and see where God was.
Oh yeah.
Because he's what carried you. Sometimes you can't feel it. Sometimes you don't see it because you're just in this storm.
Absolutely.
That's going on. But then you look back on it 6 months later, a year later, 5 years later, whatever, and say, how did I ever get through that?
Yep.
And then you realize it was through the presence of God being with you and you being open to him to carry you through.
Yep. Absolutely. You always, like I said, if believers know, you may not know then what the Lord, is trying to do, but like you said, it could be a week, it could be a day, it could be years down the road.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I can see it in my life. I can look back on my life and be like, wow, I didn't know that I didn't know then, but I sure know now that the Lord was, working and, pulling the strings because like I said, his time is everything. And we can do all we can do to try to do things on our own. And, but it just don't, like I said, it just don't work like that. It's his timing, and, the blessings will come with it.
Mm-hmm. It's trusting the sovereignty of God, that his plan is always perfect, and his plan for you is far better than your plan for you.
Oh yeah.
And that's something else you see with this younger generation. And actually, I don't say it's younger, my generation as well, is we want to be in control of everything. We want to control our own destiny. We want to pull ourselves up by the bootstraps and go and control our own destiny. But if we seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, then all these things will be added unto us. Jesus tells us in Matthew. So if we seek God first, then God will lay out his plan for us, and we'll be able to walk the narrow path a lot smoother than if we try to bust our way through it.
Yep.
Right. Think of the deer who takes the path of least resistance.
That's exactly what I'm sitting here thinking. We try as hunters, we try to plant food plots, trim these lanes, do all these things to try to make these deer do certain things. We're trying to get a wild animal that God created to do what we want. Okay. Mm-hmm. And, it just gets to a point where a deer is going to do what a deer wants to do, you know,
that day.
There's nothing you can do. There's nothing I can do. He's going to do what he wants to do. And a lot of times that's our mindset, you know,
Yeah.
We're going to do what we want to do and what I want to do. And how does it benefit me? And, you know, the Lord is, you know, looking down and saying, no, that's not how it's going to work, you know?
Right.
So,
I mean, how many times have you sat up on a trail and you see the deer coming down the trail? Oh man, this is going to be just like clockwork. He's coming right down the trail and he gets 36 yards away behind the brush and he just turns and just gets off the trail and just starts meandering through the woods. Well, why did he turn? If he'd have come right there, I'd have had an easy shot, but he just turns. Tomorrow he may walk right down that trail, you know? And I'm a very simple thinker, Hunter, when it comes to this. It's like today I may want a cheeseburger. Tomorrow I may want pizza. And so that you may be hunting the white oaks and he's been tearing them up every day, but he's like, I'm sick of white oaks. I'm going to come over here and get these post oak acorns over here that day that you happen to be there, you know? You just don't know. And that's part of the fun of it though. That's why it's hunting and not just killing, right?
That's it. When you realize, you know, you're not in control of that the Lord is, it just makes it that much sweeter when you do, you know, kill that buck you're after.
Yep. And the same thing with the turkeys is I wrote a turkey book several years ago and I was quoting somebody and their name's leaving me. So please forgive me if I can't remember who said it, but it was Mr. Hudson in the chapter I call The Turkey Whisperer. And he took me turkey hunting one day. And because I wanted just to learn, I said, Mr. Hudson, he was in his 80s. I said, I don't even want to take a gun. I just want to watch you do what you do. He said, oh, you take a gun. I'll call for you. I said, okay. So he made scratch boxes and he made trumpet calls. All right. You know what those are, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay. And he gets turkey to gob on the other side right at daylight, other side of a beaver swamp. I said, well, we ain't going to kill that turkey. He said, come on. And of course he's 82, 83 years old. So we shuffled, took us forever to get around the field. And he said, you sit on that tree. I'm going to sit on this. And we're about 8 or 10 feet apart, that close, kind of me in front and him just a little bit behind, but I could look over and see him. Okay. And I'm thinking, is he going to call? Is he going to call? And I ease my head over and look, and I can see his cheeks moving and he's got his hands on that trumpet. I can barely hear it. That turkey just cut loose 400 yards easy, all the way across the beaver swamp.
Yep.
And he did again. And next thing I knew, that turkey had flown across the beaver swamp and had landed 30 yards from me. And when he hit it again, I almost come unglued because he was so close. Now I was expecting to be way over there, right? And I'm looking for him. I killed the turkey. And I said, Mr. Hudson, how in the world did you call that turkey over here calling so softly? And you know how old men are, right? He come and put his hand on my shoulder. He said, Pete, you like it when your wife screams at you or when she whispers in your ear? I was like, got it.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense now, don't it?
It makes perfect sense. Now, sometimes you got to scream at them and get their attention, right?
Yep.
I mean, people that call loud, but ever since then, man, I have toned my calling way down, and the goodness, the difference. I could barely hear him, and he was 10 feet away from me, and that turkey 400 yards away flew right to us, you know, and it was absolutely amazing. And I said that to say that sometimes we got to listen for the whisper.
Mm-hmm.
God whispers to us, that still small voice Isaiah talks about, that God whispers to us. And other times he uses other people to tell us the message that we can't hear him because of the noise, right? Wind's blowing too hard. Can't hear the turkey gobble, but somebody else comes and says, hey, Pete, have you ever thought about so-and-so? And that's God telling you, or you get this job opportunity that you didn't even know was available.
Yep.
And say, hey, you know, you need to apply for this job. Oh, okay. Oh, that's kind of cool. Good example of that's a job I have now with USDA. I didn't even know this job existed. I was interviewing a guy for a story that I was writing for a magazine. And he told me what he did. That he worked for the USDA as a trapper. He said, I think they're hiring somebody up in your area. I said, who do I need to call? Sounds like a great job. Called the guy that day. He said, yeah, we got a job opening in your area and the job closes tomorrow. So I sent him my resume. Didn't even know the job existed. 10 days later, I was offered the job.
Wow.
That is definitely the hand of God working.
Yep.
And I've been here 14 years, and it is like, I didn't even know the job existed.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden the timing was just too perfect. Happened to be talking to Ricky. The job closes tomorrow. I sent him my application. They interviewed me and I got the job 10 days later and haven't looked back. It's been just a tremendous blessing. My point is sometimes God uses circumstances or other people to get you where you need to be. And listeners, I'm saying that so that you will be in tune, not just to what God is saying to you directly, but what other people are saying to you as well.
Yep. And a lot of times when stuff like that happens, I know from personal experiences, I know people in my life that I would call them, a warrior for the Lord, because, for my grandmother, for example, I know if my grandmother, calls and tells me, I've just been on my mind, I want you to know, or has an opinion on something, I know that the Lord is telling her,
Yeah.
And like I said, a lot of people don't understand that, but there's people that's just so close with the Lord. And, if you have people like that and they're telling you something, it's coming from, the Lord's telling them to tell you. And
Right.
like you said, a lot of times, people speak and can be a blessing, through the Lord that way. So,
yeah. We're fortunate here at Christian Outdoors to have quality companies supporting our mission. And Mueller Optics is a perfect example of this. Since 2007, Mueller Optics has had one mission: to bring the passion of hunting and shooting to everyone. Mueller Optics' aim is to offer top-tier rifle scopes that won't break your budget, making quality optics more attainable for enthusiasts like us. Now, I started using Mueller Optics scopes last season. Not only was I impressed with the cost of these scopes, but the quality of the glass and the ease of operation was as good or better than other brands costing 3, 4, or 5 times as much as the Mueller Optics scopes do. Whether you're building the rifle for the hunt of a lifetime, an ultimate whitetail setup, or trying to make your 22 perfect for small game hunting and plinking, Mueller Optics has a scope for you that will outperform any other scope in its price point. And to further help Christian Outdoors, if you use promo code COP for Christian Outdoor Podcast, COP35 at checkout, you will save 35% on your purchase. Just go to MuellerOptics.com to find out more.
Yeah. Well, I was a Scentlock ambassador 2017 through 2020, and then someone on that team was part of the Mossy Oak Pro staff, and I can't remember exactly the name, but anyways, I'd reached out and he kind of told me, this is who you need to get in touch with. And so I did, and things just fell together and it worked out. But going back way farther than that, going back to my dad when I was younger, taking me deer hunting, he always wore Mossy Oak. And, you're a kid, what your dad does, you want to do, or what your dad wears, you want to wear. And so anyways, I was with him when he killed his first deer. And, just that memory, those, these old photos I got that you can barely make out, what the pictures even are because they're so old. But, just those memories of wearing Mossy Oak as a child, and your dad, that's what he liked. And then, just always being around that brand, or, wanting that brand growing up, it's just, some people, just see camo patterns as camo patterns, but, Mossy Oak is way more than just camo pattern. It's all about what we enjoy is, God, family, hunting, fishing, the outdoor lifestyle, and just, it's special. And I'm glad that I was able to, like I said, it's been a blessing from the Lord, because I met some great people through this. And, now me and you, like I said, I didn't know about you before, all this. And Travis Sumner, I'll name drop him because, I I heard about the podcast through him, and I remember listening to it was the first episode he did where he shared his testimony.
Yeah.
And I remember listening to that, and I thought, man, that's I'm on a team, a Mossy Oak Pro Staff team, but my advisor, my regional advisor, stands on those values that I do. That's just something that's powerful in itself. And for a company to be with those same values is just, like I said, I love it. It's way more than a brand to me. It's, it's a lifestyle, and, I love it.
And that's a valid point. And that's one reason, because, as a popular podcast, we have to be careful who we align ourselves with as well. And one of the things that's important for me, as the owner and founder of Christian Outdoors, is that any company that I align myself with has to share the same values.
Yep.
And I had always seen things from a distance. I've been in this outdoor space for 20 something years, go to all the trade shows and stuff. I had always seen it from a distance. But then when I noticed that some of the key figures with the company were being a lot more outspoken about their faith. And when I had some conversations with Cuz and with some other people, and said, these guys got it going on, I started digging a little bit deeper, and this is the kind of company that I want to align myself with, because we share the values of God first, family second, everything else after that. Right. Yep. And so, with that, it's an honor to be able to say that I'm on the Mossy Oak Pro Staff, and I wear the Pro Staff shirt with pride. And in today's outdoor world, the Pro Staff name, the term Pro Staff, has been watered down greatly.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But there's still a few brands out there where it carries weight. Mm-hmm. And CVA, Taurus, Mossy Oak, Mueller, the brands that we associate with here at Christian Outdoors, for them, it still has deep meaning to say you're on the Pro Staff. You have to meet certain criteria. You're not just somebody who's going to post 3 times on social media every month. You have to take certain criteria. I can remember back in the day when I was on one of the first Pro Staffs, we had an interview. We had an application process, and we had to do an interview that lasted like 2 hours to be considered to be on the Pro Staff. I mean, it was a job interview. Because you had these big response. I mean, it was a big deal to have Pro Staff on your shirt, and it still is with certain brands.
Oh yeah,
it still is, and Mossy Oak is one of those. And I'm very honored to be a part of that program, very much so. Then I get to meet people like yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the type that whether it be Mossy Oak or a Broadhead company or whatever, if I use it and I post about it, well, it's not just, for discount code or, to get my whatever, you got to do. It's because I enjoy that product, or there's something about that product that, that I really like and really,
and believe in. Yeah.
Believe in. And, that's Mossy Oak has always been that. And like I said, just being a part of the Pro Staff, that's just, a redneck country boy from Alabama's dream is to be on Mossy Oak Pro Staff. But like you said, it's more than just, camo pattern. Words really can't describe it. It's in your blood. I mean,
it's a brotherhood. It's community. Yep. I think it's a brotherhood. It's like a family. Yep. You're a part of this extended family. Even if I haven't met you yet, if we say, hey, well, we're on the same team, dude, the door's open.
Yep.
The door's open.
Absolutely.
I mean, and it's quite an honor. It really is. It really is. Hunter, we've covered a lot right now. Is there anything that we're missing?
I don't know. I just, like I said, years when the podcast first started coming big, I said, man, that'd be cool to be on podcast one day. And, the Lord works in mysterious ways, because I'm not just on any podcast right now. I'm on the Christian Outdoors podcast. And, that's how the Lord works. He puts you in places and situations and, opportunities that is best fit for you. And that's what this was all about. And so I just like to thank you and Miss Charlene for reaching out, and Travis for recommendation. Cause I mean, like I said, I've always wanted to do one, but I'm glad it was, like I said, this one, because, there's a lot of podcasters out there, and I've always wondered, if people don't know, if a person don't know about Jesus, it's hard for me to understand, why they don't believe in Jesus, or why do they not care? It's hard for me to understand that, because, just the way I was raised, I never, and so it's hard for me sometimes to be like, you got a choice here. You got eternal life with the King of Kings in heaven, or you got hell. And, so many people is just like, I'll go to hell. And it's like, why? Like, it's hard to understand that. And so, it's like that with podcasting. There's people I see that's got millions, thousands, millions, so many people attracted to them, but they don't, they don't never mention Jesus. They don't ever mention
Right.
about the Lord. And it's like, man, if that person, would use that platform for the Lord, just think about how this world and this country, would be
Yeah.
like, what it would be like
Yeah.
to reach all these. And so, like I said, I'm glad it was, like I said, to be on this
Well,
podcast,
thank you.
Christian Outdoors podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. I really do. It's God laid it on my heart back in 2017, and we started in 2019. And it's a place, as we say, where we talk about the outdoors and our love for Jesus all in the same place. And the two things we're most passionate about, we have a place where we can get together and talk about it. And it's awesome. It really is. I get
Oh
to
yeah.
meet so many great people, and we get to talk about things that we love so much. And it's impacting people in a positive way. I mean, it just, when you see what God is doing with the podcast, and listeners, I'm very clear about this. This is nothing that Pete's doing. This is all what God is doing. We're going to hit 10 million downloads in 2 weeks. So before your show comes out, we'll actually be surpassing 10 million downloads since we started. And that's just strictly what God is doing through the Holy Spirit, reaching people, and people like yourself. When you go to work, you tell other people about it,
Oh
and they
yeah.
tell other people about it. And then people start tuning in, and I get emails. People say, "Hey, man, I just found your show, and I'm going back and catching up." I'm like, well, don't go all the way back, because those were pretty bad. We've gotten better
Yeah.
as we've come along.
Yep. Hey, the word spreads, and the Lord, when the Lord's in control, the limits are endless.
That's
So
right. That's right. All right. So Hunter Bonner, before you go, tell listeners if you have a social media outlet or a page, and how people can follow you and keep up with you a little bit. Tell them how to do that, and then we'll wrap this up.
yeah, my Instagram page is Hunter_Jayce, Jayce, and then Facebook is just Hunter Bonner. So look me up, send me a friend request, follow me, and hey, it's all about, like I said, the outdoors, God, family. That's what I'm all about, and it's it's just a blessing to be a part of it all.
All right, buddy. Thank you so much for joining us here.
Absolutely.